A spectacular closing ceremony is underway in Johannesburg ahead of the final of Africa's first ever World Cup. Nelson Mandela is expected to join thousands in the stadium as Spain gets ready to take on the Netherlands. This is the scene live in the centre of Amsterdam and in Madrid as thousands gather to cheer on their teams. Neither side has ever won before. Also coming up in today's programme, anger from the brother of gunman Raoul Moat. He calls the fugitive's death a public execution, saying more could have been done to save him. And Red Bull battles the Britons at Silverstone. Mark Webber beats Hamilton and Button to the checkered flag. Good evening. The first World Cup ever to take place in Africa is reaching its climax tonight. Spain and the Netherlands are preparing to do battle for football's biggest prize. The World Cup final begins in just over an hour. Well, a spectacular closing ceremony is already well underway, and South Africans are delighted to see Nelson Mandela there in person. It had been feared that he wouldn't be able to attend. Well, James Pearce is at Soccer City Stadium in Johannesburg tonight. James.
Good evening. Yes, more than an hour till kick-off, but most of the fans are inside. Some fans still arriving, but most arriving early so they could see this closing ceremony. So much speculation about whether or not Nelson Mandela would make an appearance. A man, of course, who played such a key role in bringing the World Cup to South Africa, but has not been seen in public since the start of the tournament due to the death of his granddaughter. So, well, here we are tonight now, just the closing stages of this World Cup, and the fans have been arriving for hours. They've travelled thousands of miles to be here. But this journey of all journeys has to be worth it. The chance to see your own country in a World Cup final.
Very, very excited. First time we arrived to the final, so we have to win. Poor the Dutch, third final, they're not going to win, but anyway.
Yeah, I think both sides will have to play well, but in the end we'll come out winning, I'm sure.
2-1. 2-1, I'm telling 2-1. And Schnarr is going to make in the last minute of the extra time.
3-0 or 4-0. We are Spanish.
Soon it will all be over and South Africans will have to get used to life after the World Cup. But there's no doubt that this tournament has touched the lives of millions of people.
I never even thought a thing of this nature would ever come up to South Africa.
It's like we are in a new country now, because we've seen what we've never seen before, and now we're enjoying it. Really, really.
Even after South Africa had been knocked out of the World Cup, people here continued to flock to matches. Already this evening, the closing ceremony. The curtains coming down on a World Cup to remember. The build-up to the final is almost complete. Nelson Mandela arrived, we understand, within the past few minutes. We haven't seen him yet. The closing ceremony is still underway, but it does seem that at some stage over the next few hours, we will see Nelson Mandela in public here at the final match of this year's World Cup.
James, thank you very much indeed. That's James Pearce live from Soccer City. Well, the game, of course, will be watched all over the world, but excitement is at fever pitch in the two countries that have made it all the way to the final, the Netherlands and Spain. So let's go live now to our correspondents, Christian Fraser in Amsterdam and Sarah Rainsford, who's with us from Madrid. Christian Fraser, how are the Dutch feeling this evening?
Well, they're feeling hopeful and a little bit more confident than perhaps they were at the beginning of this tournament, because of course they have beaten Brazil. But take a look behind me and don't adjust your sets. Holland really is this orange. They've been like this for the last 3 hours. They're pumping up the music, the excitement is building. So much so that the council were telling people not to come here about 3 hours ago. It is standing room only down here. So many people. And tuned in around the Holland tonight. Around 14 million people of a 16 million population. They've been here before, though, twice in the 1970s. 1974, they lost to West Germany, and also in Argentina. But this time, they think they can do it. They have a better defence, and they think they have the beating of the Spanish.
Well, Sarah Rainsford's also standing by in Madrid. Sarah, how does the scene there compare?
Well, Holland has been here before, but for Spain, this is a moment of sporting history. It's their world's first ever World Cup final, and the fans here are out on the streets early this morning, 8 hours before kick-off. The crowd has been out here. It's pushing 40 degrees in Madrid today, but these are fans who are determined to enjoy their moment as their team, they believe the best team in Spanish history, has reached its first ever World Cup final. They believe they can win. There are replicas of the World Cup in the crowd today. The fans say this is the moment they've been waiting for. The team was excellent in Euro 2008. They won that. They believe they've built on that success, and they believe they can do it tonight. The party here in Spain has been going for hours already. It's been going since the semi-final success, and it's going to go on well into tonight. That's exactly what the fans here are hoping for.
Thanks very much to Sarah Rainsford live from Madrid, and also to Christian Fraser, you saw a bit earlier from Amsterdam. BBC One special live coverage of the World Cup final begins straight after the news. Kick-off is at 7:30 this evening. Here, the brother of the gunman Raoul Moat has described the way he died as a public execution. He's also said he's likely to ask for a second post-mortem to establish what happened in the final moments before Moat's death. Police in Rothbury have continued to search the area, focusing on a potential second weapon which may have been in his possession. Here's our correspondent Greg Wood.
As children, Angus Moat on the right was close to his younger brother Raoul. In later years they drifted apart, but Angus is convinced he could have saved his brother in those final hours if he'd been allowed by the police to talk to him.
It was like a public execution. I'm probably the only person who's ever watched his brother die on live national television in the United Kingdom. It was horrific. It was like something out of the French Revolution. You know, everybody was getting there, the blood was up. It was almost as if they needed a kill just to satisfy the crowd. It's been whipped up into a frenzy.
Angus Moat also feels anguish for his brother's victims.
I feel so much for the families of the people involved as well on their side. I'm so sorry for them. The whole thing is just, every aspect of this case is just absolutely horrendous. I'm so sorry for everybody concerned here.
Today, flowers were left at the spot where Raoul Moat died. There are some clear signs here on the ground of Raoul Moat's final hours. You can see some indentations and what appear to be bloodstains. And just over here is a drain culvert, one of the places where it's thought that Raoul Moat may have been hiding out. The question of exactly what happened on this spot is now the subject of intense speculation and an independent inquiry. Police have been searching the river for a second weapon that Raoul Moat may have been carrying. They say they can't comment on the circumstances surrounding his death because of the investigation by the Police Complaints Commission. But Raoul Moat's family are calling for a second post-mortem, and they want to know why tasers were used in the final standoff.
It's a really heavy rainstorm. He's on a grassy bank, he's soaked to the skin in non-waterproof clothing, and he's got a gun to his head. If you hit him with a taser, he's going to go into involuntary spasms. If he's got his finger on the trigger, that spasm will possibly involuntarily pull that trigger.
Thanks have been given in Rothbury today that nobody from this community came to any harm. The police will scale back their operations from tomorrow. Greg Wood, BBC News, Rothbury.
Surviving veterans of the Battle of Britain have been taking part in events to remember the few who fought the Luftwaffe